Today we're doing a video that's been overdone by BuzzFeed, but we'll do it anyway. Today we're going to test 3 different inks at 3 drastically different price points and see which one is the most worth it. So representing the cheap inks is this vial of cheap black ink that I got when I purchased a $3.50 pen. I believe it was the Jinhao X450. I got this free, so it's going to be from China, and obviously it's going to be the cheapest stuff imaginable because they're obviously not going to put anything expensive with a $3.50 pen. Representing the medium priced inks is a bottle of Parker Quink. This ink has been with us for quite a long time, 86 years to be exact. It was made in 1931 and has stuck around for such a long time. It has garnered a reputation of being one of the most safest inks possible. This ink will cost you around about $10, so a lot of people, in fact most people, have probably used this ink sometime in their lifetime. Well, if you've used a fountain pen, that is. Now, there was a lot of competition when I was choosing the most expensive inks. There was a lot of competition from Iroshizuku, Graf von Faber-Castell, Montblanc, but in the end I decided to use this. This is a bottle of Ger Herbin 1670 Stormy Grey, and what makes this ink so expensive is this. Particles of gold that is actually suspended in the ink, which means when you write, whatever you write, it's going to have an amazing gold sheen and luster to it. It's actually amazing. Unfortunately, this does come at a pretty high price. A bottle of this, which is about 50 milliliters, will cost you around about $60, so it is a lot. So is this worth it? Let's find out. So the last thing I want to talk about is how do I judge which ink is worth it? What's good, what makes it bad? Because at the end of the day, it is really subjective. So there's a little criteria that I'm going to go by in this video. The criteria is going to be the ink's dry time, flow, saturation, how well it shades, its water resistance, aesthetics, value, quality, and overall, is it worth it? And at the end, I'm going to decide, like BuzzFeed, which one I'd say is the most worth it. So let's get into the video. Okay, let's talk about the cheap Chinese ink, and pretty much in this situation you're going to get what you pay for, or you get what you don't pay for, because I got it for free. You're going to get an ink that is pretty much the bottom of the barrel. They're not going to pay much for you to get this free sample. Pretty much what you'll get is an ink that should be retitled grey instead of black, because it looks like a very dark grey ink. When you put down ink, if you don't put enough ink, it's going to look like a light grey, and places where a lot of ink is put down, it's going to look like a really dark grey. It does not look good at all. In terms of the flow, because it looks really watery, it probably is going to be really watery, and because of that, it's going to flow well. It's going to be quite a wet pen. That being said, it actually has okay dry times, which surprised me quite a lot. However, in terms of water resistance, this ink is pretty much asking to be dissolved in water. It doesn't stand up one bit. It pretty much just flows right off the page if you get any water on it. So in terms of scoring this ink, dry time, I'm going to give a 3 out of 5, flow, a 4 out of 5, saturation, a 2 out of 5, it looks terrible, shading, a 1 out of 5, because this thing really does not shade, water resistance, 1 out of 5, aesthetics, 1 out of 5, value, 5 out of 5, because you can probably get this stuff by the bucket loads, and in my case I got it for free. For quality, 1 out of 5, and that gives it an overall score of 19 out of 40, which is, well, not very good at all. So moving on to the Parker Quink, the ink that costs $10, and here you pay a little bit more in money and you're going to get a giant step in quality. Here it's not going to look like a grey ink, it's going to look like a proper black. If anything, it's going to look like a very, 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 very dark blue ink. But for the most part, it's going to look like a black ink. It looks way better and the colors are on point. However, the trade-off you're going to get here is it's going to be a lot drier. I used the same pen that I used for the cheap Chinese ink, and the pen was a lot drier. When I was doing the wetness testing as well as the shading, it was a lot drier and almost dry started after a while, which is really surprising. However, it wasn't dry enough that I felt that it was necessary to prime the pen or prime the feed. As well as that, you're going to get some nice shading. It's not amazing, but you will get some nice shading with it. So in terms of scoring this ink, dry time, you're going to get a pretty quick dry time, 4 out of 5. Flow, it's going to be 3 out of 5. It's not terrible, but it's not as good as other pens. I've had Montblanc inks that are a lot worse than this. Shading, you're going to get a 3 out of 5. It's there, but it's not amazing. You can get a lot better. Saturation, 4 out of 5. Water resistance, 2 out of 5. It's a giant step up from the Chinese ink. However, it's not good. It is a step up, but it's not amazing. There are a lot better inks that you can get for water resistance. Aesthetics, 3 out of 5. It's black, but it's not something that looks amazing. It's just there, black. Value, 5 out of 5. 60 milliliters for $10 is pretty good. Quality, 5 out of 5. There's no issues or variation with this ink. I've used at least 4 bottles of this now, and they all look the same. So this gives it an overall score of 29 out of 40. So finally, let's talk about the most expensive one, the J. Herbin 1670 with gold in it. You're going to get a huge jump in aesthetics, while you're going to get a small bump in quality. So yes, you can see the gold sparkles in this ink when you put it down. In fact, all the notes here have been written with this, and you can, I don't know if you can pick it up here, but you can see the gold sparkles in it. It's not amazing, but yes, you can see it. If you use coated paper, it really pops out, and you really can see it. Now, this is going to come at a cost of money. It is $60, which is quite a lot of money for a little bottle of ink. However, it is going to be a really nice flowing ink. I'm not going to say it's watery, but it is going to flow a lot nicer than the Parker Quink. In fact, it's going to flow very similarly to the first ink. However, the colors are not going to be washed out. As well as that, you're going to get some amazing shading with this ink. You're going to get a lot of shading. It's going to look absolutely beautiful. The only downside to it having a really good flow is you're going to get quite a long drying time with this ink. Another thing I want to point out is that it is an incredibly water resistant ink. Once you put that ink down, it's going to stay there. You can put water on this ink and rub it, and it's not going to fade or feather or do any of that BS. So scoring this ink, I got a dry time of 3 out of 5, flow 4 out of 5, shading 4 out of 5, saturation 4 out of 5, water resistance 5 out of 5, and aesthetics, I give it a 4 out of 5. I only give it that because the ink by itself, if you remove the gold sparkles, it's not an incredibly exciting ink. I could get a bottle of Montblanc Oyster Grey for half the price, and it would pretty much be the same ink. Well, minus the sparkles, of course. So value, I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5 because $60 for such a small vial of ink, it's pretty poor value. Quality, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, which gives it an overall score of 29 out of 30. So, what's the worth it winner? For me, it's going to be the Parker Quink. I've used this ink for years. I've gone through 4 bottles of it, and I'm probably going to have to buy another bottle soon. I honestly don't see the point in buying ink that costs $50, $60. Yes, I have a bottle of Montblanc Oyster Grey, Montblanc Royal Blue, I have a bottle of Iroshizuku Takesumi, I have all that, so I have used expensive inks as well as the Jehaban ink, and I really just got to say, yes, they are going to be a giant step up in quality and a giant step up in aesthetics. However, I'm going to be taking notes all day, I'm going to be throwing out notes all the time. I really don't see the point in using really expensive inks for that purpose. However, if I am writing cards or doing formal letters or whatever, I will use a more expensive ink. And I really do like to write cards using this one. So, whatever you do, don't buy the cheap one. It's terrible. It's awful.